Hi, everybody. My name is Kristy Weissling, and I'm serving as the interim chair of the Department of Special Education and Communication Disorders, and I've been in that position now for 2 years, getting ready to start my third. We're getting ready to do a national search, so we're very excited about the possibilities that lie ahead. But I have been the kind of interim chair where, there's two kinds. One kind is kind of just let everything go, and the other one is we're going to clean up some messes and get this ready for the next person. And that's been my kind of the way I've done things. So just in case you're wondering, I've redone the stairwells, I took down the portico, I've done a lot of things in this building to try to make it all look the same. So if any of you knew our longtime chair, John Bernthal, did anybody know John? Sure. Okay, so one of the things that I learned about John when his wife came to the building I think it was last year. I said, we've got all the carpet in the hallways now are the same color throughout the whole building, and we're getting ready to redo the stairwells. And if you remember, this back stairwell was orange and gold for years. It was the original colors when the Barkley Center was built in 1976. And so I was talking to her about this, and she said to me, well, John was colorblind. He didn't know what color was. He didn't know that stairwell was orange, because when they came to paint the stairwells, they said, the stairwell wasn't painted that long ago. And she said, well, he probably just told them paint it whatever color it already is. So I thought that was a great story. So we have done a lot of renovations to Barkley, and we're excited for you to see all of the things that we've done. And we're going to primarily focus on first floor and the new addition of the new clinic when we do our tours. So that's a little bit about me. I want to just, focus you in on our mission. And our mission is dedicated to enhancing the lives of individuals with motor, sensory, cognitive, learning differences, and to try to help their families, their schools, and their communities. And that's really where we try to focus what we're doing. Our vision is that all of the individuals that we encounter will achieve the maximum potential they have for learning, that they will be able to communicate autonomously, and that they'll be able to enjoy optimum health and well-being throughout their lifespan. So whenever we make decisions, there are two things I think about. What is our mission and our vision? And if it is regarding any of the financial decisions, I think about what was the vision of Edna and William Barkley, who were the endowed folks who helped us to achieve all the things we've achieved in this department. And so we're going to take a little moment for history, and I feel a little intimidated doing this because many of you were a part of this history and probably know more about it and know it better than I do, right? Because I'm reading it through secondhand documents. I am a graduate of this program. I'm a first generation person, and I came here in 1984. I grew up in Waverly, and I came here and I declared speech language pathology as my major, and I got my undergraduate and my master's degree here from 1984 to 1990. So I do have some sense of history and some sense of how much the Barkley Center has changed over time. So Edna and William Barkley really were some amazing people who had a huge forethought. And I'm actually going to move forward here to this slide. William Barkley was a native of Indiana, came to Nebraska in 1888 with a job as a bookkeeper at First National Bank. And he ended up creating insurance companies, financial institutions, etc. And he and Edna helped start Lincoln General Hospital, which was the first public hospital. They also were instrumental in starting Goodwill Industries. Edna Barkley came to Lincoln in the late 1800s. She was a high school teacher and a principal at Elliott School. She became the first dean of women at UNL, and she was a suffragist. So she fought for women's right to vote in the state of Nebraska. And with her husband, helped many philanthropic endeavors in the Lincoln area, one of which became the Barkley Center. Over time, Edna gradually lost her hearing, And she actually trained herself in lip reading, and she went out east to learn to do this. And when she came back, she was very well known in Washington. And at one point, they called upon her to help do some training with people in Nebraska around lip reading. And so she volunteered her services doing that. And so because of her own hearing loss and her interest in this budding field of speech therapy, upon Mr. Barkley's death, he left a portion of his estate and their estate to UNL to establish programs for people who were hard of hearing, to educate and promote programs in deaf and hard of hearing, and to provide programming to children with speech deficits. So that's, if you read the will, which I've read the original will, that's what it says, those three things. And so one of the really interesting things I think about William Barkley is that if you read through that will, this only happened after every one of his employees was taken care of. He had this clause in there that if any of them were to become destitute, that his estate would go to help them be okay. So he took care of his employees, and he took care of all of his first generation nieces and nephews. And following that, the rest of the money was given into trust to the university. And I just think what a magnanimous person to think about their employees and being sure that their employees were all taken care of. And so very caring people, very giving people. And so with this money, which was the largest gift to the University of Nebraska at the time, a seed was planted, and in September of 1966, the first kind of center or formal programming for deaf and hard of hearing was established. And then we kind of progressed. We have always been a leader in deaf and hard of hearing, teaching of the deaf and deaf and hard of hearing kind of services. We continue to be so. We are one of the only teacher of the deaf programs in the region, and they are closing at a phenomenal rate. And we have a very healthy program. We have a great faculty member here who is writing wonderful grants that are funding students so that the students don't have to pay tuition. And so it's been phenomenal. And so this has been a very solid part of the work here at Barkley for a very long time. And so one of the things that I am promoting throughout the college is accessibility for everyone. And so I'm always on our current dean to wear a microphone and to have closed captioning on, because I think it's central to our mission. And I think anywhere SECD is, special education and communication disorders is, it should be accessible in honor of the Barkleys. So the Barkley Center was finished in 1976. And if any of you remember J.J. Exon, James Exon, I always knew him as J.J. Exon, right? He was actually the governor who signed into being the building of the building. And so it started out as a 34,000 square foot endeavor. It's now 80,000 square feet with the new footprint. Now, not all of that is usable space. There's mechanical closets and electrical units, et cetera, but 80,000 square feet is the current footprint of the Barkley Center. So in all of this, I'm not going to give you all the details because I don't want to put you to sleep, but across time, the programs developed into three basic programs. The program in special education, the program in speech language pathology, and the program in audiology. So those three programs make up the Department of Special Education and Communication Disorders, and that is really, really unique across the country. Most of the time, special education is in teacher prep, and speech pathology and audiology are in medicine or health sciences. And so this is a very unique configuration that we have, and it is a great opportunity to bring together people who have similar mission towards helping people who have differences in the way they process information, and poises us uniquely to do very big and special things. So that is kind of the history of the Barkley Center. But what I'd like to talk to you about is Barkley Center today. It is a really unique place in terms of its research endeavors, because we have here traditional research that you might imagine. You know, we bring in, we might develop a curriculum and then take that out and test that curriculum and do some testing with students, and then do some post-testing with them and have a control group and kind of look behaviorally at what changes in learning. That's kind of traditional behavioral research that you would expect from a department like ours. But we also have this very high-tech research. Many of our researchers are involved at the Center for Brain Biology and Behavior and are using tools like fMRI to look at what changes in the brain of a child when they receive a certain kind of instruction versus another. And so how are we really changing the way those brains are wired to learn information? And so we have this great mix of this very high-tech, high-end kind of research and this kind of traditional behavioral research that's going on. And we're impacting people from the time they are born until the time that they exit this world. So we have research labs that are looking at things like how we can help premature babies learn to swallow so that they can be discharged from the hospital on oral feeding and don't have to depend on tube feeding or gavage feedings, right? And so we have a researcher that has worked on that and has developed that system. It's now in FDA trials. We have that same researcher is working on how we can use puffs of air on your fingertips and your face to stimulate your brain. Should you have a stroke event, we could hook you up to that, and that would be stimulating your brain while you're being transported to the hospital to keep your brain active. Because we know in mouse models that if we give a mouse a stroke, which is terrible, I know that's terrible. Some of you are very against that, but they do that in those kind of wet labs. They give mice strokes. If we click its whisker and give it sensory input, the effects of that stroke are less than if the mouse doesn't get that sensory input. So based on that, if we give input to the human while there might be having a stroke, we might be able to lessen the effect of that stroke. And this is done through air puffs, which is totally benign. I mean, if you're not, it's not going to do anything to you that would be negative. And so again, from preemie babies to more advanced aged persons who might be experiencing stroke. We're also doing research in, how many of you have heard about like your brain making the computer work, right? So we have a researcher who's working on that for individuals who are not communicating, and how that we might be able to, don't even have to be able to move their eyes. They can simply use their thought patterns to activate a computer to tell us what they want to say. And that's our AAC translation lab up there. We're doing a lot of research in cochlear implantation and amplification and perception to improve the way people hear by improving the training that they get to use the various kinds of interventions they get, and by improving the actual products themselves. And so our audiologists are doing work in that area as well. So those are just, I mean, I could stand here all day. I get excited about the things that are going on here because this is life-changing for people, right? And one of the things I'm very interested in is how we can harness artificial intelligence for individuals who have learning differences, and how they can use artificial intelligence to improve the way they live. So very exciting work being done here from a research perspective, but also from a clinical outreach perspective. So here at the Barkley Speech and Hearing Clinic, we do over 5,000 visits a year, which is a lot for a university training program. We are one of the only clinics in Lincoln that will accept all of the Medicaid plans for speech and audiology. Many will pick one, and say, if you have this plan, yes, you can come. If you don't, the person down the street will accept your plan. We accept all of the plans here. We are seeing some of the most communicatively vulnerable children and adults in this area in our clinic because of the expertise of our clinicians. And so if you're here on any particular day, you're going to see individuals, some of the most complex cases around you will see in our waiting room. We are interfacing with Head Start. So we are sending clinicians out to Head Start to help them in the classrooms improve the way some of the at-risk children are communicating in those classrooms, because COVID really kind of did a number on communication for some of those kids. And so our clinicians and students are going out and helping the teachers to come up with strategies to help those kids communicate. We have a great reading center here that is coordinated by our special education faculty. So children, if you know any children who are struggling to read, I want you to know about the Schmoker Reading Center, because we're taking children who have not been identified as needing specific support through an IEP, but who are simply struggling readers, and we're helping them, we're tutoring them to teach them to read, and they're being tutored by our students who are in our reading course. And so they're in their reading course, and then they're going down and tutoring and applying what they're learning in that reading course with those students and making a big impact on those struggling readers and getting them reading. And so it's really, really, really exciting. Again, I could go on and on and on about clinical programs we have. I'm very proud of them. But just as much as we are a research center, we are a clinical outreach center and a teaching center. All of our clinical outreach that we do involves our students, so that our students get the opportunity to practice what they're learning in the classroom. Our speech language pathology and audiology programs and special education are all top 100 programs in the country. In terms of audiology, they are tied for 19th in the entire United States out of hundreds and hundreds of programs. Speech language pathology is tied for 21st in the nation, and special education is 63rd in the nation. So right here in Lincoln, Nebraska, you've got top 25 programs situated. And a lot of that is due to the fantastic financial support of the Barkley Trust that allows us to innovate and to provide support to do these things. We have undergraduate, we have 115 special education majors, 114 communication disorders majors, that's audiology and speech pathology. In terms of special education, one thing to know is that a lot of these students are dual majors. So they're elementary ed, special ed, or they're secondary special ed. So they're getting 2 endorsements. So they're not just special education students, but either way, they are getting the training in special education. In terms of our graduates, we have 27 AUD students. We have 64 master students training in speech language pathology and 67 special education students. We got selected as Best of Lincoln for speech language pathology in terms of our clinic, and audiology was runner up. And the winner was ENT specialist. So we're very proud of our clinics. They're very, very good. We provide a variety of services in our speech and language clinic. These are just some of them. Aphasia, which is a consequence typically of stroke or some kind of brain injury, where an individual loses their ability to use language to communicate. We do work on oral rehabilitation for those who need help and assistance learning to manage their hearing loss. Autism, brain injury, augmentative and alternative communication, which is one of our specialties, dementia, English language learning, fluency, gender diverse communication services, serving individuals with intellectual disabilities. We have a book club for adults who are readers that have Down syndrome that meets on Thursday nights. And that's a great group. It's inspiring to see them as they come together around what they're reading. We serve individuals with memory loss, individuals that are having reading difficulties, and of course, any kind of speech issues that an individual might encounter. We also are part of the Parkinson's Voice Project. So with that, I'm going to stop. You've heard enough from me, and I'm going to turn it over to Stacie Ray. And I did not mention the hearing aid banks, but I know that she will. And Stacie has been an advocate for being sure that every individual in the state of Nebraska has access to a hearing aid for as long as I've known her. And she has been instrumental in forming these 3 hearing aid banks that serve people from birth to end of life, and being sure that any person in the state of Nebraska who needs a hearing aid and cannot afford it can get a hearing aid. And that is just amazing work. She's also a very dedicated clinician in our clinic and is an excellent teacher and mentor to our audiology students. And so, Stacie, I'm going to welcome you up here to talk about the services for hearing.
So you got about 20 minutes of listening to one of the most incredible mentors, teachers, and leaders. Thank you so much, Kristy. I mean, she's done so much remarkable work here at the Barkley Center. And it's really my pleasure, and thank you, because, whoops, sorry, I am like losing my mic here. Vicki, thank you for reaching out to get this group together and have you come to the Barkley Center. I am just one tiny little grain in this big, amazing group that we have working at the Barkley Center. Not like Kristy said, we could talk for hours and days about all the work of all the incredible people, but I'm very honored to just represent one little portion of that. First, I'm just going to talk more broadly about our hearing and balance services. So this group, I bet some of you have had hearing loss, have hearing loss, know somebody with hearing loss, right? And we need to find the services that are out there within our community. So we are one of the choices within the community that we do comprehensive hearing evaluations. We also do fit hearing aids and do other treatment options. We do cochlear implants for those who no longer can benefit from a traditional hearing aid. Interestingly enough, the history of a lot of us that work here, my son was diagnosed here. He is now 34, and he was the first cochlear implant recipient in Lincoln Public Schools. So all of us have this passion and drive, and I went to school here too. That's what got me into audiology. So I think that's what's really cool about what we have, what we provide here is really driven by the passion. We do infant hearing screenings. So little babies can't raise their hands to beeps, but we have methods that we can test the babies by putting these little sticky electrodes on them and looking at their brain waves given different inputs into their ears. And we can help identify if they do have some hearing differences. And then we have the capability to treat them. And we have the gift of being able to stay with them as they grow and mature into adulthood. Also, our ears are not just for hearing. Our ears help us know where our head is at in space. So if somebody is having vertigo or dizziness or imbalance, we also can do some assessments to see where that may be stemming from. If somebody does have a very common form of dizziness or vertigo, that's from what's called BPPV, and some of you I see going, we are able to treat that as well. So I thought I would add a hot topic in audiology right now. So the hot topic is really this connection between hearing loss, cognition or cognitive decline, and dementia. And the reason I'm bringing this is not to be a Debbie Downer at all. It's actually the opposite, is because we are now in a phase understanding the importance that our hearing plays on our overall brain health and how important it is for us to be able to treat our hearing in order to keep our brain as healthy as possible. So there are different hypotheses. I'm not going to get into these two very much. But part of the hypothesis started at Johns Hopkins several years ago, where they started to do these fMRIs and different imaging studies and trying to figure out what is happening, why certain people are more prone to the onset of dementia. And they found that untreated hearing loss is one of those very high risks for early onset dementia. So it could be that it's a cognitive load. You're trying to listen, and the same parts of the brain that are needed for short-term memory are being utilized, and that could contribute to this deficit. They also are just seeing some sensory deprivation could be causing that decline. And it's been known for many, many decades that when people withdraw from social situations, that those individuals are also more prone to changes cognitively. So you guys are doing the right thing. You guys are involved in groups and staying active, and that's wonderful. So if we look at this, it's from the Lancet Commission on Dementia Prevention and Intervention. And this is a great way to just see what the most current research is, and they try and update it every few years. But if we look on the very, very top of this reverse S shape, it is the education level. So we know that individuals with less education do have more prevalence of earlier onset dementia. The next most critical and the most modifiable risk factor for dementia is hearing loss. So it's really important to get your hearing screened, tested, and any kind of treatment. Other things would be your, of course, social isolation, all those kind of in the purple there. So symptoms of hearing loss, I'm just throwing these out. Some of you may be experiencing some where you, what a lot of people say when they walk through the door is they say, well, I feel like people just aren't talking clear enough. And that could be an indicator that you may have some changes in your hearing. And all of us have changes as we're blessed to be on this planet for longer and longer. Maybe asking people to talk more clearly, to ask them to slow down. Those would be all good strategies. And just reducing the background noise, making sure that there's not a lot of visual disturbances as well. So if you're in a real busy restaurant, thinking about where you can place yourself so you're not having all the busyness in front of you as well. But you guys are doing the right things. Coming to the conversations that you're having at a high level within groups like this does really make an impact on your overall health and well-being. So like I said, this is just one little slice, one little snapshot of one program that we have within this amazing structure of the Barkley Memorial Center. And I've been blessed enough to be participating in this for over 20 years. And Vicki is and has been part of Sertoma. How many of you have heard of Sertoma? Several. Okay, wonderful. So Sertoma is a service organization. It's service to mankind, Sertoma. And they started how many years ago? Do you even know? It was something like 1912. I mean, it was a long time ago, over 100 years ago. Here at the Barkley Center, we have the Sertoma Hearing Aid Bank, and that serves individuals age 65 and older who have difficulties purchasing hearing aids because they're expensive. On average, $4,400, and they can go upwards of over $6,000. And a lot of people, that's unattainable due to restrictions in their finances. So we have been working in collaboration with the Nebraska Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, the Sertoma organizations within the state of Nebraska, and the Barkley Memorial Center since 1981. And we have provided hundreds and hundreds of hearing aids to individuals all across Nebraska. They do not have to travel here. They can use the providers that they have within their communities. And I think that that's so important that we make sure that people are able to use all those wonderful providers that are embedded within their community. After serving with the Sertoma Hearing Aid Bank, we took over the Lions Hearing Aid Bank from the University of Nebraska Medical Center many years ago. That serves individuals aged 19 to 64. Same financial criteria. We are able to provide individuals with hearing aids. Now, both these groups are adults, so we work with refurbished hearing aids. The cool thing about this program is that our students are working with this from every hearing aid that gets donated to everyone that gets cleaned, checked, programmed, verified, and sent out the door. And that builds their skills, and they're able to work with a lot of the other organizations within the state for this partnership. And then finally, Hear You Nebraska is something that I started years ago because I was one of those mothers that got the diagnosis of my son being with a severe hearing difference. And then he lost his hearing completely by the age of 3. But when I heard that we needed hearing aids, we didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. I was not, I was still a student, a young mom, and we didn't know what we were going to do and found out that insurance doesn't cover hearing aids for children. Now we do have some mandates, and that does help a certain population. We have people that may be undocumented, children that do not have access because they do not have health insurance. We need to make sure that we are setting up every single child and adult for success, whether it's in the classroom and at work, and that's what we try to do. So Hear You Nebraska has now, we are right at our 1,000th little ear being fit with hearing aids throughout the state of Nebraska. So we hit that mark and we're really proud of it. And they get brand new hearing aids. A lot of them also qualify for ear molds, batteries if they're battery driven, care kits. We pay dispensing fees to whichever audiologist they're going to. And that's what we've been doing for about 14 years. So, like I said, this is just a snapshot, one of the small things that we do with our outreach across the state of Nebraska. And we are serving a lot of individuals in Western Nebraska with Sertoma, the 65 and up age group. We get a lot of applications from Western Nebraska. So the Barkley has a really big outreach, and I appreciate being able to talk about that. If you would like to connect with us here at the Barkley Center, please do. This is our Facebook page, our Twitter and Instagram, if you want to get your cameras out, or you can just Google us because we will pop up. Okay, so are there any questions, either online or in this group for Dr. Weissling or myself? Yes.
So if someone wants to come to the Barkley Center, can they just come, or do they have to have a referral from a?
That's a great question. So the question is, if somebody wants to come to the Barkley Center, do they need a referral or can they just come? If you're on Medicare, you will need to get a referral for audiology. We're not doing that anymore. You're saying no? Oh, sorry. I thought you were saying no. So you should reach out to your primary care physician to get a referral. I will give you some sad news because it's really hard to get in unless you're established here at this point. You would want to call about a month or so before the start of each semester. We have limited openings for, what's that?
3 semesters.
3 semesters, exactly. So about a month to 6 weeks before the start of that semester is when our schedule comes out, and there's only limited availability for new patients. So please reach out if you are interested in having your hearing tested or any of those other amazing clinics that we have. Please do. You can always call our main number, and the front desk people are amazing. They will help navigate anything that you need. They're very knowledgeable about all the services here within our department. Yes, Larry.
Be interested in knowing a little bit more about donating our hearing aids.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for that question. So anybody who has hearing aids knows of any hearing aids sitting in any family member's drawers. It doesn't matter if they are if they are working, not working, doesn't matter what style they are, does not matter. Please drop them off here at the Barkley Center. They are usually pretty good about taking them at the front. If there's a bunch of them, you can call and you just Google the hearing aid bank and it will get you to us, and we have a phone number. We would be more than happy to meet you at one of the entrances as well. And it is a tax donation or a taxable donation. So if you do donate, we would give you a tax form for writing that off if you wanted that. Yes.
Curious, there are a lot of choices if you're interested in audiology services. When is it best to come here? When would it be best to go to an ENT or just somebody who's in private practice who sends you a flyer in the mail?
I love that question. So the question was, when would you maybe choose to come somewhere like the Barkley Center versus an ear, nose, and throat physician's office versus somebody who sends the flyers in the mail that you get often and maybe at least once a week? I'm starting to get that too. My husband signed me up for AARP when I was gone out on a weekend. I'm like, you did that? I think that crosses the line. But I'm getting a lot of those now. So thanks to my husband. But anything that we see that needs to be medically treated. So if there is an ear infection or embedded wax that we can't remove because it's beyond the scope of our practice, we can do a lot, but we can't do it all, then we would refer you to an ear, nose, and throat physician. However, if you are having severe pain in your ears, you know, dizziness, anything like that, you don't want to wait to get into any place. You want to seek the treatment that can get you in the quickest. And that would be likely an ear, nose, and throat physician's office before you would be able to get in here. Then, if they identify something and you wanted to pursue getting hearing aids or whatever, then that would be your decision making at that point, whether you want to stay at the ear, nose, and throat physician's office who has those services, come to someone or a place like the Barkley Memorial Center, or if maybe you wanted to try one of the other resources that you get brochures. Good questions. Anything else? Yes.
I think I've heard that Costco has hearing aids so much cheaper than here.
That is a great point. Mhm.
What's the pros and cons on that?
Yeah, so the comment was that she heard Costco has hearing aids for so much cheaper, and they do. I will not blow smoke to anybody. I am straight shooting. They are cheaper. The reason being that they have thousands and thousands of stores all across the globe, right? So they have a direct negotiation with the manufacturers because they buy a gazillion units. We, as more of a smaller clinic, do not have that opportunity. So we cannot get those kind of deep discounts. So that is the difference. The difference between a Costco and someone like the Barkley Memorial Center is in the skills and the time that we're able to spend with you, with the follow-ups, the knowledge if there's something going on that might be more medical on how we can get you connected to the right treatment. So yeah, you're paying for a difference with services. You are.
We just want to say that one more time. I think that's really important, the follow-up.
Yeah, the follow-up.
The hearing aid is not
Yeah.
over, and it's really important.
Right. And we follow gold standards. We have equipment that we use that a lot of audiologists don't even use in certain practices. So we want to ensure that you get the best audibility and comfort. And we want to make sure that you have not only the hearing aids are one part of it, right? I think that one thing you probably gained from this conversation with Kristy even is that everything that we're doing is going back to brain health, right? I mean, that's why we're all staying active as we can, and we're seeking out information because we want to keep our brain healthy. So we don't make it about the devices. The devices are a small part of it. We make it about what we can do to make sure that you are as successful as you can be with the devices and accessories and communication strategies and all the things that you will not get at a lot of places.